I'm Liano Sharon. I'm a member of the Michigan Democratic Party State Central Committee, and I also serve on the State Party Rules Committee. A few weeks ago, I was asked to speak to a group of precinct delegates on what a precinct delegate is and their role in the party. Several people have asked me for a video of my remarks, so here it is. I want to start with a bit of the history of precinct delegates, talk about some of the changes in the Democratic Party over the last few years, give us a sense of where we are, where we're going. What is a precinct delegate? Under state law, precinct delegates are the only members of a political party who get to vote in the party. The only members who vote for county chair, district chair, state party chair. The only members who get to vote on nominations for lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, Supreme Court justice, or university board. The only members of a party who get to vote on anything at all. The Michigan Republican Party still does it that way. At their conventions, precinct delegates are the only ones who get to vote. In the Michigan Democratic Party, you join, wait 30 days, you get to vote. You shouldn't have to wait the 30 days, but that's a discussion for another time. This is my very favorite thing about the Michigan Democratic Party. In the MDP, we put the power in the hands of the people. Why is that? When I asked around the party for an explanation, I got one of two answers. Either they didn't know, or they told me this story. The powers that be in the party were asleep at the wheel, or maybe they just plain got out organized, or maybe some combination of both. Depends on who's telling the story. What everyone agrees on is that they were going to lose control. At the August primary, their rivals elected enough precinct delegates to vote them out of power. But party elections weren't till February, so they changed the rules. They let members vote. Politics is about power, who has it and who doesn't. Anyone who tells you differently is selling something. Precinct delegates, as originally constituted, are a small part of a complex system of laws and institutions, formal and informal, created by the two major parties to prevent insurgents from within the party, third parties, and independent candidates from gaining power. Precinct delegates are a way of controlling the nominating process. Boss Tweed, a famously corrupt Democrat, put it this way: "I don't care who does the electing so long as I get to do the nominating." Handing the nominating process to a tiny minority, elected at the bottom of the ballot in partisan primaries that few citizens attend, is a good way to ensure that party bosses get to do the nominating. People aren't stupid. They stop showing up. They stop paying attention. They know when their vote doesn't matter. The Michigan Democratic Party doesn't use that system anymore. Any Michigan resident can join for free. Every member, after 30 days, can vote. You don't even have to be 18. In the MDP, voting age is 16. Even so, in a state of 10 million people, we have just 15,000 members, not even 0.2%. State convention attendance was around 2,500, barely 15% of those 15,000 before the progressive movement. Progressives brought that number up to 6,700, just 45%, at the endorsement convention last April. Despite being open to all Michigan residents 16 and over, and despite being free to join, hardly anyone does. Hardly anyone in Michigan knows there's a difference between being a Democratic voter and being a member of the Michigan Democratic Party. The party uses membership as a means to raise cash, rather than as a way to raise participation in the party. It hides the free option under small print at the bottom, or doesn't mention it at all. Membership expires every year, so they can what? Hold your vote hostage for a donation? No, it's free to join. There are three practical consequences of this policy. Some former members are denied the right to vote for 30 days. Some former members get ticked off and don't renew at all. Some members try to shame people for using the free membership option. This is a new version of the precinct delegate system. Keep membership low so the powers that be in the party remain in control. If the party used membership as a means of recruiting and retaining new members, rather than as a means of raising cash, the free membership option would be front and center, and membership would renew automatically. The party would raise money by asking for donations from a large membership base, not a paltry 15,000 out of 10 million. To organize that way, the party would have to treat everyone fairly, run the party at all levels democratically, follow their own rules. Otherwise, people wouldn't pay, or they'd leave, as happens now regularly. You might think the party already does that, follows their own rules, treats everyone fairly, runs the party democratically. It doesn't. Here's one example. I sit on the Rules Committee for the state party. Arguing against clarifying the rules, one of the other members said he knows that there are caucuses that regularly break the rules for voting, but, and I quote, "I don't think it's the role of the party to tell the caucuses how to run their votes." The rules are unambiguous. MDP Rule 2.3 reads in full, "No bylaw or other rule shall be adopted by any MDP unit that is inconsistent with the rules of this document." It would be bad enough if the guy who said that didn't have any power over enforcing the rules, but he does. He's the chair of the Appeals Committee, the committee charged with enforcing the rules. He was just reappointed to another 3-year term. An organization of 15,000 people that doesn't have a set of rules that are fair, democratic, and enforced fairly and democratically is either in total chaos or is being run by a small circle of decision makers based on personal relationships, where those personal relationships are more important than the published rules. It's possible they don't even recognize this is what they're doing. It's just the way they've always done things. Many of them know exactly what they're doing. It's your job as a precinct delegate to educate voters, persuade the persuadable, and turn out votes for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. From among the persuadable, it's your job to recruit, organize, train, and retain members of the Michigan Democratic Party. You should know what you're asking people to get into. You should be honest and upfront about it. Otherwise, when they see and experience it themselves, they'll leave. You won't retain them. It's wasted effort. Telling them these truths about the party creates mutual knowledge. In the story of the emperor's new clothes, everyone can see the emperor is naked, but they remain silent, not sure everyone is seeing the same thing or is willing to acknowledge it. Then the little boy shouts out that the emperor is naked. Only then does everyone know that everyone knows the emperor is naked, and they all laugh together. That's mutual knowledge. Everyone knows that everyone knows. So they're not afraid to talk about it. They're not afraid to call it out when they see the rules being broken, or someone being shamed for using the free membership option, or told to wait their turn to run for party office. If we want to grow the party, really want to increase our numbers to 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 or more, we have to fix these problems in the party. An early step is recruiting people honestly, being upfront with them about the problems in the party, and asking them to be part of the solution, letting them know that there's a movement for fairness, transparency, and democracy in the party, connecting them with it through the Progressive Caucus, the Young Dems, the Cannabis Caucus, or other groups within the party who are championing the changes we need to make in order to grow the party. When I'm out there recruiting, I often run into folks who say, join the Democratic Party, then I'd be a Democrat. I might vote Democratic, but I don't know that I want to be a Democrat. I tell them that's authoritarian thinking. In an authoritarian organization, when you join, you're expected to conform, to march in step, to toe the line, be like everybody else. In a democratic organization, when you join, the organization becomes more like you, because you have an equal voice in deciding what the organization does, how it operates, who it supports. A democratic organization doesn't define the people in it define the organization. The Michigan Democratic Party isn't there yet, but it's getting there. Within the past few months, they've started accepting free memberships online, which they've never done before. This also means that members under 18 can join online. They still put it way at the bottom in a tiny font, but it's there. The most valuable link for recruiting you'll get today. That doesn't help very much. Go to the Michigan Democratic Party website, michigandems.com, and click on the Join MDP button. That takes you here. Scroll down. There it is, in tiny type at the bottom. A political organization run by personal relationships among a small group of insiders that want to maintain their power creates cults of personality. The personality is more important than the policies. Re-electing the incumbent is more important than what policies the incumbent supports. The incumbent is part of the inner circle, and relationships are more important than rules, more important than achieving policy goals. Big policy goals mean big change, but change must be limited to keep the inner circle happy. They're insiders because the system has been working well for them. They don't want big change. They want little change, tweaking around the edges, or change that doesn't affect their power, change that doesn't affect their money. We get a full-throated defense of free speech and freedom of assembly from many Democrats. Those don't cost the inner circle much money. When it comes to the right to health care, the right to education, the right of our grandchildren to an environment as healthy or better than we found it, very few stand up and give their full-throated support. When it comes to the right to equal treatment under law, private prisons have inner circle investors, and the school-to-prison pipeline keeps pumping. Some rights cost the inner circle real money. Voting rights cost the inner circle real power. When it comes to equal rights, some rights are more equal than others. When there are demands for big change, there's always a reason it can't be done. We can't have universal health care this cycle because it's too far, too big a lift. The best we can do is more affordable. Maybe we can have it later. Later never comes. It's always now. What can we do now? What can we get done now? What can we pass this term? Big change takes time. In a politics of now, big change is impossible. Now is the mantra of inner circle politics. The inner circle follows Otto von Bismarck all the way back to the 19th century. Politics, he said, is the art of the possible. Movement politics is the art of changing the possible. When you organize, organize for the long term. Organize for this election cycle and for 3, 5, 7 election cycles down the road. Keep good, accurate records. Manage your lists. It's boring. It's not sexy or exciting. It's the most important thing you can do for the movement. Who in your neighborhood shows up? Who can be relied on to do good work? What is each person good at? Who can take on bigger, more complex tasks? There are about 3,000 people in each precinct. Far too many for one person to keep track of. Split it up. Find 3 people to help. Build on that. Find 5. That gets the number down into the reasonable range. Figuring some of the 3,000 are not eligible and some of them are not interested or not persuadable, maybe that leaves around 300 or 400 folks for each of the 5 of you. Don't rely on the party to keep accurate records. Enter the data where they ask you, but keep your own records, both because the party has a crappy track record for keeping accurate data and because they don't always make that data available when you need it. The most powerful 3 words you can say are, I'm your neighbor. Start a conversation. Get to know the people in your neighborhood. Door knocking is great, but it's not nearly enough. Organize regular monthly events, a potluck that's kid-friendly, or a meetup at the local coffee shop or tap room. Do things with your neighbors. Be the welcoming committee on your block. Find out what local issues are troubling them. They want a stoplight where there's only a stop sign? Help organize a delegation to City Hall. There's a problem in your neighborhood school? Be the one to call a community meeting or encourage others to step up. Be involved in your community. Perhaps most importantly, organize around policy goals, not personalities. When you go knocking, don't talk about the candidates. Tell them what our policy goals are as Democrats. We're going to get universal health care. Maybe that's Medicare for all, maybe it takes some other form. We're going to get a Green New Deal. We don't know what that looks like yet. So far it's just a plan to make a plan. No one knows what it'll look like. It's an opportunity for discussion. How do you think we should do that? What are your goals for healthcare, for education, for the environment, for the economy, for justice? You're not going to debate the minutiae of policy details when you're out door knocking. Whatever you're going to say, it's going to be big picture. How will we pay for it? The same way we paid for a $1.5 trillion tax cut. The same way we paid for a $700 billion bank bailout. The same way we paid for $6 trillion of war since 9/11. The wealthy who got the tax cut, who owned the big banks, the military-industrial complex, the insurance industry, the fossil fuel industry, have been living high on corporate welfare for a long time. Socialism for the wealthy. These are the big dollar donors of the inner circle, Democratic and Republican. Here are a few hard truths. If we're going to seriously address climate change at the scale of the problem, there's going to be a lot of inner circle donors out of a lot of money. The fossil fuel industry has hundreds of billions of dollars already on their books representing oil still in the ground. If we're going to address climate change seriously, it's going to have to stay there, in the ground. They're not going to be allowed to sell it, either by market forces that drive their cost up and renewable costs down, or there'll be a law against it. They're not going to be allowed to extract it and burn it. If we organize around policy goals and not personalities, we'll win. If we organize around the right to health care, the right of each generation to a healthy environment, the right to education as a key principle of democracy, If we organize around big issues, not small bore patches to big problems, we'll win. Will we get everything we want in one cycle? No, of course not. We want big change. It won't come fast and it won't come easy. We're putting the powers that be on notice. This is where we're going. What we can get in one election cycle, we'll take. And we'll be back the next election cycle, and the next after that, until we achieve our policy goals. We don't care who stands up and fights for our goals. The personality isn't important. If it's an incumbent, great. If not, that's fine too. In movement politics, policy is more important than personality. Long-term goals are more important than what we can pass this cycle. A movement acts now, plans for the midterm, and organizes for the long term. As a precinct delegate, it's your job to educate, persuade, and organize the voters in your precinct, and to turn out the vote for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. From among the persuadable, it's your job to recruit, organize, train, and retain members of the Michigan Democratic Party. You have it in your hands to make a movement, to build the party of the future, to transform our politics, our country, and our culture. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications of future videos. If you like the work we're doing, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your contribution gives you access to bonus content like extended episodes of our podcast, exclusive one-on-one interviews with special guests, and supports free videos like this one. Find us at patreon.com/MichiganProgressive or visit us at our website, michiganprogressive.com.